Hey everyone, my name's Blake. I run a channel called Blake's Aquatics and I'm a fish keeper down here in Australia. Currently I've got about 50 aquariums set up in my garage fish room. First of all, thanks heaps to Zach and Aquafinity for inviting me to collaborate on this video. I'm really excited to show some people what I've been working on here that may not have seen it before. So my fish room is certainly not the cleanest, it's not the prettiest or anything like that, but I'm just trying to make it functional. As you can see, most of the racks are sort of 3 tiers high, but I found I use the 3rd tier less and less just for convenience. Behind me here, I built this bench here, mainly for the background of some live streams and other videos, but again, very, very functional kind of style in here. I've got a sink over there, which really helps with water changes, and it helps to just have a water connection in here. And then other than that, I've got some other larger tanks over here. And my largest tank here is an 8-foot aquarium behind me. Some typical examples of what I like to keep are things like these ember tetras, blueberry tetras, and down below I have a whole lot of live bearers and other small community fish. Some other notable species that I keep, I've got some chili raspberries, got some kubutai raspberries that I'm breeding. They're the neon greens. You can actually see some fry swimming around in the breeder box. And also I like to keep some Tanganyikan species too. So I've got some Julidachromis transcriptus there, Neolamprologus multifasciatus, the shell dwellers, and there are some Tropheus. The 8-foot unfortunately gets a lot of glare, so it's kind of difficult to film, but I like these kind of community tanks, which just has a whole bunch of a bit of everything in there. We've got some angelfish, clown loaches, some Goyder River rainbow fish in there, mascara barbs through there, just a little bit of everything. And everywhere you see something is a little bit strange or quirky. You can see this giant whiptail catfish hanging on the glass as well. Another species I picked up recently are the longfin white cloud mountain minnows, and I just think they're absolutely stunning. I've never seen fins like these on other fish here in Australia. My most unusual oddball fish that I have here in the fish room at the moment are also the largest, and that's my pair of snakehead gudgeons. These are an Aussie native and they're set up in my 8-foot aquarium. They're pretty peaceful and I just enjoy how they kind of float around slowly like little submarines. They're also kind of a unique shape. They're not the most colorful thing ever, but I think that's why I like them too, because they're a bit out there, not something that you see every day. I keep quite a few little aquarium shrimp at the moment. I like how quirky and easy to take care of they are. So I do have some blue, yellow and red cherry shrimp of the Neocaridinus. Also of the Caridinus, I've got orange eye blue tigers. I've got some snow whites, some Michelin shrimp, and that might be all for now. But over the journey, I've had all sorts of stuff: red wines, snow whites, blue bolts, all sorts of strange shrimp. I quite like small, community-friendly things like that. In terms of keeping and upkeeping a larger fish room, I have a few things that help me out. First of all, I do heat the room, so I don't have individual heaters in all of the tanks anymore, which took a little bit to get used to, and there is some seasonality to that. Here in Australia it gets quite warm, so it does get warmer in here through the summer, and it does cool down over winter, but I don't think that's a bad thing for the fish anyway. Water changes, I do have some drains in all of the aquariums, so I never have to siphon out water. I just turn a tap and there's always a siphon in all of the tanks, so that drains straight either to the sink or outside. The sink is a lifesaver because when it comes to filling up the aquariums, it's quite easy. I just attach a hose to that and it's really quick and easy. And other than that, I have all of my lights on timers to make it easy. So the least amount of things that I have to come in and physically do per day allows me to spend more time observing, feeding, and doing the things that I like. I got into the hobby in kind of an interesting way. Back when I was studying at uni, I was studying engineering, we used to go for sort of cheap dates, me and my now wife, and one of those included going into a pet store one day to just kind of kill some time and check out some animals. And in there I saw some neon tetras and I was fascinated. I knew that I had to keep fish that day. However, I was living in a small apartment at the time, moving around a lot, so it wasn't quite right for me to get my fish tank. That's pretty much what set me on the best foundation possible. I just researched and watched videos and consumed all the information that people like this channel here are putting out to this day. And I watched all of that stuff for 4 or 5 years until I was settled. I just had my second son and I was having a couple of weeks of leave from work. So that's when I set up my first tank, and within about a month or so, I had about 5 or 6 aquariums, and it was time to start my first fish room. When it comes to breeding fish, I really enjoy that part of the hobby, and my favorite fish to breed would be celestial pearl danias or emerald rasboras, mainly because they breed in the exact same way, and it allows me to incorporate another aspect of my hobby into the fish room too. So I've had quite a successful period of time 3D printing some egg collection boxes and putting them in with these egg scattering fish, in particular CPDs. I've bred thousands of those with my 3D printed boxes now. I have 8 running just on those 2 species alone, but within the fish room I have about 11 of these boxes going at a given time. I sell them on Etsy and I ship them around the world, so a lot of people have left 5-star reviews and are really happy with the product and happy to breed them and have success in that way. So yeah, I'm really happy that I sort of spent a bit of time a few years ago developing and refining this thing, and I do make continual refinements as it is now, but for that reason CPDs and emeralds are my favorite to breed because it's just so easy. Once it's all set up, I turn an airline and eggs just pour into the hang-on breeder box. It's like magic. Regarding some tips for success breeding shrimp and fish, and my biggest tip that I can give you is to keep species that you enjoy. I see a lot of people get sucked into these high price tag fish or fish that they think that everybody wants but they actually don't want it themselves, and that's a surefire way to get frustrated, bored and move on. So just keep a fish that you like anyway, and that way you'll be spending energy on it, enjoying it and giving it all the best care just because you want to see that species thrive. And then if they make some more fry, then that's just a bonus. For example, coincidentally, the 2 species that I've had the most success with, celestial pearl danias and emerald rasboras, are the 2 species that I absolutely love probably the most in the whole fish room. So there you go. The other one as well, I'd say, is breeding shrimp and fish is very, very simple when it comes down to the nuts and bolts of it. It's just all about good water, good food, and the lowest amount of stress factors that you can have in the tank. So fish are pretty resilient, and you know, it's a bit tricky sometimes because it's not often obvious where there are stress factors involved. So say for example, you've got a fish and it's at the perfect pH and hardness and all that sort of stuff. It's got the perfect setup in the tank, not too much flow, some good cover and all that sort of stuff, but the temperature is a bit low or a bit higher than what they would prefer. That fish will probably swim around absolutely fine, and you'll never know that it's getting a little bit stressed out by that one thing. People only start to realize when fish get diseased after putting up with a different temperature, a bit too much flow. Maybe they're getting stressed out because there's nowhere to hide when you walk past the tank every day and you're scaring the living daylights out of them. So it's like multiple stress factor stuff that really starts to hinder the health of the fish. But the more that you can get those factors eliminated, the more that you can get every condition to where the fish optimally wants to be, that's when the fish will go, hey, this is a pretty good place to be. I'm gonna make more babies, and you know, this is just great for survival. At the very basic element of it, a fish isn't gonna waste the energy and the protein that's involved in producing an egg or producing milk if they think it's gonna go to waste. So that's kind of the biggest tip I can say. If you've got really shy fish, don't put them in a highly trafficked area. If you've got, you know, fish that come from naturally slow moving water, don't put 700 FX6s on the tank and have it, you know, a giant whirlpool. Just try and make it as simple as you can get and do some research into where the fish actually come from to better understand that. When it comes to some tips for raising and having success with the fry, I think it's really important to introduce live foods as a first feeding. So I like to keep at all times live vinegar eels, microworms, and baby brine shrimp. Vinegar eels are if you're going to breed anything really, really small. Things like rainbow fish, then it's kind of a must because they also float at the top of the tank, which is nice as well. Microworms do sink down, but they're a great small food. I feed those to my baby CPDs and emeralds like within the first few days before they're really big enough to eat a baby brine shrimp. And I like live foods because they don't foul up the water as quickly as powderized foods. Sure, they're not as convenient, but I think from birth, these fish just have an instinct to chase and hunt and survive that way. And sometimes baby fry just starve out, simply, I think, not being able to recognize a powderized food as a food source. Some mistakes that I've had when trying to breed fish and breed a lot of fish is kind of straddling between a tank that's good to look at or a tank that is really efficient. And you know, if you just genuinely love the hobby and love the species that you're keeping, it can be a really difficult thing to do. I think the best bet is to actually set up both, where you have a display tank of the fish that you want to show off, and then purpose-built breeding tanks, because otherwise I've found, the area that I'm looking for eggs, the area that I've set up for them to breed, if they're in a nice planted tank or an aquascapes tank or anything like that, either you're destroying the scape every time you're trying to catch fish and do things like that, or they'll go and find a nice little pocket and breed somewhere else and then move to another area as another plant grows in or something like that will happen. And things just change and become too dynamic. I think the most amount of things that you can keep consistent will allow you to be able to judge if something needs to be moved, adjusted, or changed in any way, or if you just set and forget and keep it as consistent as possible. So kind of putting in too much hardscape, too many plants and things like that into breeding aquariums is what I've learned that I need to hold myself back from a little bit. And the last piece of advice that I give to anybody looking to set up a fish room or get really deep into the hobby is only set up for about half of the amount of tanks and fish that you think that you can keep. This will allow you to concentrate in and hone in on projects and give fish a lot of attention, but also will allow for things like breaks when time gets busy, work gets busy, school gets busy, whatever it is. Fluctuations in your lifestyle will still mean that the fish will be okay, because you're not overloading yourself with work and stress, and it becomes a really daunting task to come in here, do maintenance, and keep things moving in a fish room sense. So if you only set up for about half of the things that you can handle, then you'll be able to handle it at all times, because I have 3 sons and they all have their own hobbies as well, which I have to help out with. So things in my life certainly get a bit tricky. That's something that I've learned over the journey as well. So that's my fish room, that's my hobby. Hopefully you liked it and hopefully it was interesting. A huge thanks to Zach. I kept him waiting a long time for this video, so to help him out, can you hit subscribe and like down below? And I don't know how to end off on somebody else's channel. Usually I say hit like, subscribe and all that good stuff, and I'll catch you on the next one. Hopefully I'll see you in my comments at some point or another, but other than that, enjoy your fish keeping and catch you later.